Day 6 of Panthers training camp is a wrap, and it was a quieter day. But there's one thing I'm wondering as far as a contract for one Ickey Ekwonu and whether that's on the horizon. We'll talk about that right here on Locked On Panthers.
You are Locked On Panthers, your daily Carolina Panthers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into another edition of the Locked On Panthers podcast, a part of the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, as always, Julian Council, talking Carolina Panthers with you every Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and yes, of course, Friday, your team every day. That is our motto here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Thanks for watching the show on YouTube and listening wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. Be sure to follow me, Julian Council, over on Twitter and Blue Sky at Julian Council, because this Friday going to have a special Friday mailbag training camp edition. All you got to do is either at me or DM me over on Twitter at Julian Council, or simply at me over on Blue Sky, also at Julian Council, to get your mailbag questions in right now. And we're breaking down day 6 of Panthers camp as I was out there once again on this Tuesday morning. Ickey Ekwonu, he is saying he's going to let his agent handle his contract. We said it was last week, but there's been a couple of left tackles the last couple of days who've gotten extensions. Is there going to be an extension on the horizon possibly for Ickey Ekwonu? And then got a couple of other updates as there's an injury to an offensive line backup that we'll talk about later on here on the show. Let's start off by going back over my observations of what I saw on day 6 of training camp. No pads today, so when I got there, I forgot that, they'll have pads on one day, not have pads on, put pads on, and they're coming back on Wednesday. I got there, it was a little disappointing because, I guess it's going to be kind of a vet rest day, and it's not going to be a ton to really look at as far as some of the key players on the Panthers roster. Dave and Nicole Tepper were back out there. Brinson Buckner, he was also out at the practice field today. J.C. Horn, Mike Jackson, and Adam Thielen, all of those guys were given off days, which gave some younger guys an opportunity to get some snaps with the first team. JT Sanders, who was banged up at the end of practice, it looked like he was going to be able to come back in had they not blown the horn to end it on Monday morning. He was out there A-OK, and Dave Canales asked him what was going on. He said, don't know if he's okay, but he said he felt that he probably got punched in the groin or at least in the stomach, and that's what it appeared to be. So JT Sanders is out there. He's all good. Cade Mays, it was his turn to run with the ones after 2 straight practices on Saturday and Monday, with Austin Corbett as the starting center, working there with Bryce Young in the first team offensive line unit. Updates on that later here on the show. Bobby Brown III, he was activated off the non-football injury list with a hamstring injury on Monday. He was not a big participant on Monday, but he was out there during team period today on Tuesday. So good to see him in the lineup, and knowing that it's going to be vitally important for him to be healthy. For Derek Brown, of course, probably paramount that Derek Brown is healthy this upcoming season, if the Panthers are going to stop the trend of just being terrible against the run. And you look at Brinson Buckner, who's been defensive line coach for the last couple of years in Arizona and across the NFL. Would love to have him back just on this roster, because back when he was around with Peppers and with Mike Rucker, you never saw the issues that you're seeing stopping the run over the last couple of years. And that's been a trend since the Panthers have gone predominantly to a 3-4, 3-man front. Is that why they've not been able to stop the run? The scheme, I wouldn't say that. Has the personnel always been there? Probably wouldn't say that either. But this year, with Derek Brown back, with Bobby Brown III, bringing in Turk Wharton, drafting Cam Jackson, who has not gotten a ton of reps, and some of the other guys in that room, I do think that they're set up, at least defensive line-wise, to stop the run. We'll see what Trevin Wallace and Christian Roseboom at that linebacker spot are able to do this upcoming season. Did not grade out well against the run, according to PFF last year, but they both did have, Wallace is his first year as a rookie. Roseboom had 135 tackles, a career year for him on a playoff defense. So we're not going to sit here and look at PFF and say that these guys cannot play. That's just one way to look at it. But both those guys are going to get an opportunity, of course, this season to be the two men in the middle. And the linebacker play was not great last year, which I think played in hand with the run defense not being great. I think overall, just the interior of the defensive line, all the injuries was the main reason. But the linebackers not having Shaq, not having Josie, really being himself when he was here last year, and then Trevin had to step in there, even him getting injured, putting in Clyde Sherrillis, putting in Jacoby Windman. That was not a recipe for success. And let's not forget that the safety room did not do a great job when it got to the second or third level with them stepping up and getting some tackles and bringing guys down. So I think that should be an area improve, primarily because Derek Brown's back, but also Bobby Brown III is around. The two Browns are out there and should be able to stop the run this upcoming season. With Mike Jack and J.C. Horn not out there, that meant Corey Thornton and Shamar Bartholomew were the two starting corners. And when I look at things right now, like there is concern, I know, out there about the corner position and what Carolina is going to do there. And this is still a time where they're evaluating what they have on the roster. I would think next week, following joint practice with the Browns and the preseason game next Friday night against Cleveland, that would be when they would probably make a decision on a few guys and whether they want to bring somebody off the street. The whole Jalen Ramsey and what's his name, who Rocky River went to Green Bay, and that was with the, I don't even know where he's at. Jair Alexander, he's with the Ravens. Like that wasn't going to really happen for Carolina. That wasn't necessarily what they wanted to do. You have to understand, if you bring in Jalen Ramsey and you bring in Jair Alexander, like those guys are coming in to start. The Panthers, of course, are going to start J.C. Horn. There's no question about that. We already know that. Not really something that needs to be brought up, but they just paid him $100 million. And then they also, on the same day, later that evening, they brought back Mike Jackson to start again this season. So if you're bringing in those guys, then you're relegating Mike Jack. And you may think that's the right decision for Carolina to have made, had they made that decision, which, of course, they did not. But they made it fairly clear that Mike, who I think is having a good camp, and JC are the two guys that they want to run with this upcoming season. So the real question was going to be about depth. And I still think there's questions at depth at multiple positions, defensively, linebacker, certainly, safety as well, just in the secondary overall. Behind the starters, what do you have? And right now they're leaning on an undrafted free agent out of Louisville and Corey Thornton, who has been impressive so far. And then Shamar Bartholomew, who Dave Canales talked to us after practice today, and he talked about really he kind of redshirted last year, was coming over from a new scheme from being with New York to coming to Carolina. So they allowed him to learn it. He got an opportunity late in the season, week 18 against Atlanta back in January. And now he's come out, had a good spring with somebody that had multiple interceptions and I was being spoken highly of. And now he's got an opportunity to be right behind JC and Mike Jackson. So Corey Thornton, Shamar Bartholomew next week in particular is going to be a very important week for both of those guys to show their worth and why Carolina does not need to go out to try to find some other depth there at that cornerback spot. Even though neither one of them have a ton of experience. Thornton, zero experience. Bartholomew, a little bit more, but not a ton more than Corey. So we'll see how that all plays out. DJ Johnson, saw him getting a decent amount first-team reps today. Claude Sherrillis also getting some first-team reps, rotating in there at linebacker, and that's another spot where we'll find out what they want to do. Clyde is going to be somebody who can play special teams, and that's going to be needed, of course, if you're going to make the roster at that linebacker spot and not be one of the top guys in Roseboom or in Wallace. But overall, a lot of questions. Before Josie Jewell was released, I wasn't that concerned about the depth at linebacker because you had three guys. Now that he has been released, you have two guys. One of them in Wallace, who has not had a ton of experience, but is promising, and in Roseboom coming off a strong year, but really having the green dot for the first time in his career, which is the communication. He's calling out the signals and all that for the defense and communicating. We'll see how it plays out, but what's behind them is certainly a little concerning at this point in time. Some other stuff I saw, and not a ton. This is a pretty slow day, as again, no pads, a lot of guys taking vet days, or just a handful of them. A kick return kickoff return, that is, Raheem Blackshear. He was returning, had Rico Dowdle out there blocking for him. David Moore returned as well. Trevor Etienne blocking. Jimmy Horn Jr. returning with K'Ron Lynch-Adams blocking for him. Then TJ Luther returning with Jacoby George blocking. Those were the guys I saw out there on kick return team. Then kick traversy update. Matthew Wright back up for the third time as we've been out there as media viewing, was 7 of 10. The first 2 opportunities. And remember, this is on skinny post, so I don't think a single kick he's had he would have missed on a regular post, but he went make, miss, make, miss with a big old doink there to close things out on the longest kick that he had. So 3 for 5 today, now 10 of 15 on the skinny post. And again, I don't think that he or Matthew Wright have missed a single kick that would have been no good on the normal uprights. And that's competition that will go into games. That's Dave Canales told us on Monday. So we'll see how that plays out next week against Cleveland and possibly the weeks after that against Houston and against Pittsburgh to wrap up the preseason. So those are my observations from day 6 of Panthers training camp. I'll be out there for day 7 on Wednesday morning. But with all that going on, there's still some things happening across the NFL as it pertains to left tackles getting new contracts. Rashawn Slater's got a new deal. You also look at Bernard Raven up in Indianapolis. He got a new deal. Does that mean that Ickey Ekwonu is close to getting a new deal as well? We'll talk about that here in just a moment on Locked on Panthers. This episode is presented by Yahoo Fantasy. Fantasy football is back. Fire up the group chat, get your draft board ready, and buckle up for a season filled with breakouts, bust, and all the overreactions we live for. It's all going down on Yahoo Fantasy. This year, me and Locked On NFL are playing on Yahoo Fantasy, and you should too. Whether you're a first-timer or a veteran making your millionth league, to celebrate 28 years of fantasy greatness, Yahoo Fantasy is dropping 28 big new features over 28 days, giving you more ways to play, more ways to draft, and more ways to win. It all begins August 4th. Stay tuned and get started by creating or joining a Yahoo Fantasy Football League at yahoofantasy.com/LockedOnNFL. That's yahoofantasy.com/LockedOnNFL. And let's make this fantasy season the best one yet. Big news on Sunday out of Los Angeles as the Chargers signed their left tackle Rashawn Slater to a 4-year, $112 million deal of $85 million guaranteed. Then the next day on Monday up in Indianapolis, the Colts also locked up their left tackle Bernard Raymond to a 4-year, $100 million deal with $60 million guaranteed. Slater's deal makes him the highest paid offensive lineman by average annual pay in the history of the National Football League. So with both of those deals being done on Sunday and on Monday, both of those guys playing left tackle, it made me wonder, is Ickey Ekwonu going to get a new deal here this week or before the season begins here in 2025? Because you're looking at it, guys who are right around his age and at the end of their contracts, which Ickey is not. He's got the 5th-year option next year, but those guys are starting to get paid. And I'm wondering, is Carolina going to get ahead of it? Because that's been a trend over the last couple of days where these guys are getting paid. Do they want to go ahead and fall in line and give Ickey the market rate for right now? Or do they want to wait until March or possibly wait until this time next season where the numbers may go up and where Ickey may end up being an all-pro after this season, which I don't know if that's going to happen. But it could happen. He could be a Pro Bowler after the season. And if that happens, the dollar signs are going to be more than the dollar signs that I believe they would be at this point in time as we sit here on Tuesday, July 29th or Wednesday, July 30th, whenever you check out this pod. So Ickey told us last week when we spoke to him that he's going to let his agent handle it. And it's funny because Joe Person was asking the question, and Ickey immediately started laughing and telling me, you already know what I'm going to say. I'm going to tell you. I'm going to let my agent handle it. He says that this is home to me, and it literally is home. Born and raised in Charlotte, went to PD, went to state. We all know the story. So he wants to be back home. But I also believe, first and foremost, that Ickey wants to be paid what he believes that he should be paid. Now, is that going to be the highest contract in the history of the NFL for an offensive lineman? I doubt it. Is that what he's asking for? I don't know. But right now, seems like it may be the right time to get things done. And I talked about this back earlier this month when doing our offensive line preview. Maybe that was last month in June. I don't remember. It's been a while since I actually recorded that and put it out there. But I talked about this that the last couple of years, guys who have been first-round picks like Ickey Ekwonu and then have had their fifth-year options exercise, have then later on that year in the summer had new deals. That's been Tristan Wirfs down there in Tampa Bay. That's been Andrew Thomas up there in New York with the Giants, and also Christian Darrisaw with the Vikings. Like the last 3 years, you've seen that happen. So Ickey had his fifth-year option exercise. That was a no-brainer. Dan Morgan said way back in January they're going to do that. And then he kind of made it seem like, oh, that's still a decision we're going to make, even though you had already said, Dan, that was what you were planning on doing after locker room cleanout day. So that's been taken care of. And we've gone through almost the entirety of the month without a new deal. Is that deal going to happen? Because looking just at the contracts right now, it's important to understand where the market is at. Rashawn Slater reset the market at $28.5 million. I saw some people out there like Joel Corey, a former agent, does work for CBS Sports, and then Jason Fitzgerald, who runs the overthecap.com website that I talk about all the time here on the show. Those guys are talking about not having the $30 million tackle just yet. And they're thinking that this is going to go up in increments of $500,000. So the next tackle to reset the market, likely, according to Joel and according to Kevin, are going to get $29 million. I don't think Ickey Ekwonu is going to be that guy because Rashawn Slater, two-time Pro Bowler, stud. $28.5 million is what he's getting right now. The second guy behind him, and these are left tackles. We'll talk about overall tackles because the market's kind of changed to where right and left tackles are both valued highly. Tristan Wirfs, he has a $28.125 million contract to make him the second highest paid offensive lineman. Just offensive tackle, period, but left tackle in the NFL. Trent Williams at $27.5 million. Christian Darrisaw at $26 million. And then Bernard Raymond, who just signed that deal on Monday, and then Laremy Tunsil, both at $25 million. So that's the market right now. And you look at it, and here's the thing. We got also, let me go back to this. You also have Penei Sewell, who's at $28 million, and he's a right tackle. Lane Johnson, who's at $25 million as well, just to throw in some right tackle. So right tackle, left tackle, $25 million kind of feels like the floor right now for Ickey. Andrew Thomas signed a 5-year, $117.5 million contract back in July of 2023, so 2 years ago. That was at $23.5 million. I don't think that's where Ickey's going to land. Like, to me, again, the floor is right there where Raymond, who just signed for $25 million, Tunsil, who's on a $25 million deal, which is a little bit old at this point in time, and Lane Johnson at $25 million. Like, that's where those guys are at. Darrisaw, maybe that's where things land at. Because if you look at it, like, there's some guys who have not been Pro Bowlers or All Pros who are making a good amount of money. And you are probably saying to me, Julian, that, oh my God, Ickey Ekwonu has never been a Pro Bowler. He bounced back last year, but maybe he's still better off at guard, even though you're not going to give me any actual solutions to who should play left tackle and who would be better than him and yada, yada, yada. But you're probably saying that. Okay, fine. But if you look at it, Christian Darrisaw is making $26 million a year, and he's never been a Pro Bowler or an All-Pro. You also look at Bernard Raymond, who's making $25 million per year, and he has also never been an All-Pro or a Pro Bowler. And Raymond's a former third-round pick, and he got good money. Ickey's a former first-rounder like Darrisaw, and Darrisaw is making more. And Darrisaw's contract was also signed prior to Raymond, so it seems very clear that Raymond was willing to play or to settle for less than what the Vikings were willing to give Darrisaw. And I don't know the Colts contract situation as far as the cap and all that and why they decided to offer him that, but that's what he took. And as a third rounder, not like he got a ton of money anyways coming into the league. Most of it's not guaranteed. So, yeah, you're going to take that kind of a deal, which good money for Raymond, probably good for the Colts as well. So you can't make the excuse that, oh, Ickey's never been to an all-pro team or been to a Pro Bowl, where there's two guys who are some of the highest paid offensive tackles, period, in the NFL, are making that money right now. So I'm just curious, with the Panthers having exercised fifth-year option and the recent history of guys like Thomas and like Darrisaw and like Wirfs getting an extension later on that summer, are they going to do it? Like, there's no rush, but with the action that's happened this week with Slater and with Raymond, would it be wise for Brant Tillis, who I did see out there at practice today, would it be wise for Brant and for Dan and for Dave, and I guess David Tepper as well, would it be wise for them to go ahead and get this deal done so that they can avoid potentially watching the money go up for Ickey? And I can't, unless he like just is a first team all pro, just a complete just cinder block you can't get through this year, I don't imagine that he's going to end up getting that $29 million per year. But either way, right now, you may be able to get it done for 26, 25, maybe 27. Whereas if you wait, the money goes up. And I'm not going to say this is like a Brian Burns situation, but we have seen when they valued guys and they have played well that the dollar sign goes up even higher, and then eventually they move on. I don't think they're going to move on from Ickey. I think they're going to get this deal done. It's just a matter of when. With Derek Brown, fifth-year option, then the next offseason, they took care of him. With J.C. Horn, fifth-year option, then the next offseason, as we saw, they took care of him. Ickey Ekwonu, fifth-year option. Will they wait until the next offseason coming up here next year in March and then take care of him? Quite possibly, but there's been some action. So maybe that will spur some action here for Carolina as far as it goes with their fourth-year left tackle, the former first rounder at NC State, Ickey Ekwonu. Dave Canales, Panthers head coach, gave us a couple of more updates on Tuesday after practice, and one of them is not great as a third-year offensive lineman went down with a knee injury. We'll talk about that here in just a moment on Locked On Panthers. Time to fuel up and turn up with 5-Hour Energy Transfusion. It brings the bold grape, ginger, and lime flavor of your favorite golf drink, minus the alcohol, into a quick, energizing shot. Whether you're sinking birdies or just making memories with friends, this one's a hole-in-one for your energy game. Let's be honest, some days on the course or off it, you just need that extra boost to stay sharp and energized. And guys, I love golf, big golfer. You can see the hat right now if you're watching on YouTube. Seabrook Island, got to play Ocean Winds earlier this month, and just love the beautiful course, and one of my favorite golf memories, I suppose. But golf is all about good times with good people and good flavors, of course. The grape ginger lime flavor gives you the best parts of your clubhouse go-to without chasing down the bev cart. If you go to 5hourenergy.com, that's the number 5hourenergy.com, you can use my promo code LOCKEDONGOLF to receive 20% off your order. This offer is only valid until September 30th on one order and cannot be used with other promotions. The code is not good on subscription orders. Whether you're meeting up with friends or trying to turn 18 holes into 36, get the energizing boost you need to power through. Order transfusion flavored 5-Hour Energy shots today. Going over a few of the updates that Dave Canales gave us after practice on Tuesday. One of them was surprising. Chandler Zavala was not out there at practice today because he apparently suffered a knee injury on Monday, the first day of pads for the Panthers during this training camp. A knee injury that they're taking week to week. Dave did say that it has to do with his patellar tendon, which is not great at all. They're hoping to get him back at some point during this camp, but right now, Chandler Zavala is not good to go. So clearly, it's not the biggest loss, but it's also not a great one with Carolina bringing back everybody in the offensive line. Ickey Ekwonu back at left tackle, Damian Lewis back at left guard. At center, you have either Cade Mays or Austin Corbett, right guard. Of course, Robert Hunt, right tackle, Taylor Moton. Then you have your sixth offensive lineman, Brady Christensen, who can play center. He can play guard. He can play left tackle, can play right tackle, can play all five positions on the offensive line. I believe has played all five positions on the offensive line during his first four seasons as a Carolina Panther. Yosh Nijman been rotating a lot with Taylor Moton there at right tackle as they manage Taylor heading into his ninth season, I believe, as a Carolina Panther. And then you have guys like Chandler Zavala, who's back into the fold. And there's been guys like Jatir Carter who also have gotten some snaps, and Jared Kingston. But Zavala really took a step last year forward to being a solid player. And the way things are set up for him, there's not really a pathway for him to be on the field unless there's an injury to Damian Lewis or Robert Hunt. Of course, knock on wood, don't want to see that happen, as both of those guys were solid. And a big part, I think, of that offense having the ability to turn around last season because the offensive line was finally, talent-wise and even just health-wise, where it had not been in years past. So the good thing is your top guys are still fine. Brady Christensen's still fine. But Dave was saying developmentally that Chandler's had such a great camp so far. It's only been a couple days, only one day of padded practice, but apparently it happened during 1v1 drills against Derek Brown. So Derek Brown out there, apparently just Zavala took a bad step, and now he's hurt his knee. We'll see how significant that is. As far as what that means for everyone else, well, Jahir Carter, right? Again, I've seen him out there plenty of times getting opportunities with the second team and even rotating with the ones every once in a while. Him and Jarrett Kingston, who played a couple games last year on this roster, those are going to be two guys who are going to get a chance to really shine, especially next week during joint practice, but during the preseason game where I'm expecting that the second team offensive line is going to play a ton of snaps. So that would have been nice to have Chandler out there getting all that work. Brady, I'm sure, is going to have plenty of work next week as well. But now Jahir Carter and Jarrett Kingston, both of those guys are going to get a lot of work. Jahir Carter, he is a third-year guard out of Southern down there in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, for anyone out there who did not know who that is. Derek Brown, he also was working off to the side today as he's dealing apparently with some oblique soreness, just some general soreness, as Dave described it before getting into more detail as far as it being an oblique. I can't say it's too surprising. Those muscular injuries happen a lot for guys who are working their way back from injury, and they're trying to go slow with them. They want to be ready for week one. So we'll see how that impacts him going into next week against Cleveland, more so for the joint practice, not so much for the preseason game, but we'll see how big of a deal that is as pads go back on again on Wednesday, and I'll be out there for that practice. Center competition, it's going great. That's what Dave said, and they're going to continue to take it day by day. So Cade Mays was today. I wonder if Cade didn't get Wednesday because Austin got Saturday and he got Monday being the first padded practice, and Cade has not gotten a padded practice with the first team. So we'll see if that's how things play out. But again, that'll be something that I'm going to look out for on Wednesday at camp. And again, pads back on Wednesday. And Dave says that he plans to leave guys out there a little bit longer. So later on in practice, it was only about an hour and a half practice, maybe like an hour 25. Like, doesn't really matter. Basically the same thing. Amount of time they were out there today, said it's going to be a little bit longer. So maybe going to be about an hour 45, maybe 2 hours out in the brutal summer heat here in Charlotte. Those guys can get an opportunity, especially late in practice, stay out longer, get used to playing the amount of snaps they're going to play consecutively once the season gets going, which will be really nice to see just how they mix and match as far as guys out there, the lineups and all that. So I'll be staying tuned with all of that on Wednesday morning down there at Panthers Training Camp practice, day 7 it will be. That's going to wrap up this edition of the Locked On Panthers podcast, part of Locked On Podcast Network, hosted by yours truly, Julian Council. Again, y'all subscribe or follow the show for free over on YouTube or wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. And be sure to follow me, Julian Council, over on Twitter at Julian Council, because again, on Friday, going to do a special Training Camp Friday mailbag, the last Friday mailbag of the year. Mailbag will be back in the offseason. Wednesdays will be here for the weekly Wednesday mailbag throughout the regular season, but the last Friday mailbag of 2025 come up here on Friday. So get those questions in by either adding me or DM me over on Twitter or adding me over on Blue Sky at Julian Council. But in the meantime, be safe, be happy, be whole. As always, keep pounding, and I will talk to y'all on Wednesday/Thursday or whenever the hell the podcast comes out and give you all my observations and thoughts from day 7 of Carolina Panthers training camp.